Whoa! Hey, quiet down. Monday Morning Express is about to start.
We had these 3 locos, different sizes on our table, so we just wanted to come back to that, okay? We've taken the hardest one, the 060, right? Because of our little sausage tender there, we've got it installed. But now we've got the other sizes, right? So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges we might face or why it even makes it easier in these.
Well, sure. Now, in this Mikado 282, it would be much easier still using the micro tsunami. You can still put it all in the boiler, but in this case, you have enough room, you would not need to lose the factory boiler weight.
So we keep the boiler weight in there. Excellent. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we didn't have it here, and we know that because of the space constrictions and everything that we had there. But here, definitely we can put it back in.
Absolutely. And the principles of the installation are still the same. Using the connector, the micro connectors, putting in new lights, the resistance, everything is the same except you're working in a little larger space.
Okay, so we've got that. It's still go inside the loco here. On our bigger model, what would we do then?
Well, on this model, this is a Northern, a 484 type, and the manufacturer Challenger on this model has included provisions on the bottom of the tender for holes where sound from a speaker could come through. And my preference would be to take advantage of that in this instance, and you could use the regular sized Tsunami board decoder, or you could use the purple decoder, and you can install everything inside the tender, including a high bass speaker, which would face down to send the sound out of those holes. In this instance, you would be using a larger connector, probably with 5 or 6 wires, depending on the number of functions you need for the engine. Firebox, flicker, cab lights. If it has a Mars light, for example, especially the Southern Pacific used a lot of Mars lights on their steam engines. So you may have to run functions forward that you wouldn't have to if you put everything up in the boiler. Some people have also used more than one decoder. You use a function-only decoder for your engine and a sound decoder for the tender. But in this case, we would use the connector to keep it all in one. I do want to point out or illustrate the size difference in technology that we have now. When I first started installing sound decoders, the only connections that were available were these SIP pins. And this is, you know, the better part of about 3/4 of an inch for 6 huge connections. And you've got that down about 1/3 of the size by going to these. So there's a huge advantage. And I just want to point out that people might think that 6 wires is a lot. And even though these are color-coded by the maker, it's very simple to take black paint and just paint over these colors once you get it installed.
So you wouldn't use heat shrink tubing or anything like that?
Well, if you can see, there's already heat shrink tubing on here, and that holds the wires and the solder connections to the connector tabs themselves, the pins. And in my opinion, it actually looks prototypical because on a real steam locomotive, you have steam lines, air lines, signal lines.
So that detail would be there
water
anyways,
lines.
right? Okay.
It's all there. So if you install the fitment and the positioning of these properly, maybe to where they're more hidden underneath the firebox or the rear truck, then it really is going to look like you have some nice looking hoses running between your engine.
Hey,
and
that's a
tender.
good trick. Yeah. Just paint it black then.
That's exactly
Excellent.
right.
And so we wouldn't want to drill any holes in there though.
Absolutely not. That will greatly affect the value of your locomotive, especially these higher end models.
Yeah.
You can always use the provisions that the manufacturer had for running wires between the engine and the rear light, etc., to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Much better than drilling any holes.
Unfortunately, we have seen that at BrassTrains.com where individuals have drilled the holes, and as you mentioned, it does affect the value of the model overall.
Absolutely.
No one wants to see those in there.
No, sir.
All right. Oh, well, thanks so much, Scott. We appreciate that. So we can see the different sizes, and as we mentioned at the outset also, the different types of decoders that you could use based upon that, our different wiring pieces that you have here, and even the connectors as you brought out in some of the little tips there that we could use.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, nice job, and we'll look forward to getting that diesel on the next one. Boyd, we're going to talk a little bit about our interior sections of our car here, but basically we're going to see our window treatments.
Correct.
Okay, so we know that there's a variety of things to keep in mind when installing window treatments, so tell us what we have here and what you use.
Well, we're going to start off with the actual our glass, our simulated glass, which would be Evergreen Products
So our
9006
styrene here, yeah, polystyrene.
J2 Clear.
All right,
This
very good.
Yeah, and the thing is,
And this is available easily from Evergreen.
Yeah, you can grab it from, it's quite a bit. That's why I need more people to buy this stuff, make more.
Keep it going, right?
The reason I choose this size, it's a thicker glass. There's 2 sheets per package, but you'll see other ones that offer 3 sheets per package. It's a thinner material.
So how many cars can you take care of with a couple
That
of
should
sheets
be,
here?
I should be able to get like 8 cars with that.
Okay.
You know, and but the problem is that the good thing about it's thick. It's a thick glass.
Right.
So when you look down the side of a car, when you pick up a car and look down the side, you're not seeing your glass wavy, especially. It stays straight.
Because
it's a
you're
really
running it
clean
in
finish.
one full strip.
Yes, exactly. I'm laying it all in one big, one strip.
Okay.
So what
else we got?
Did
go ahead.
These other products, the V Groove, the black, that is for our window shades. So we'll start off first with our
black. And our V Groove.
V Groove.
All right. Our V Groove specifically used for
bathrooms.
Bathrooms, right.
Bathrooms.
Okay.
And
Excellent.
as we go, so we're going to start off with our car. Most brass cars, they come with a channel in here where the floor drops into this section. The floor will screw into the bottom of the car.
Right.
And what I did is I sacrificed a car.
So you're not saying that we have to cut apart our brass model to install windows treatment?
Well, you want to? So with this car, I cut this panel out so that way you guys at home can see this.
Nice.
So we're going to apply glue in here, and then I'll show you how I lay in the glass.
All right, let's do it.
Technically, this is the inside. You're looking at the inside of one of these cars. That's been stripped and cut apart. And so why don't you hand me the 9006, and we're going to cut, and I'll show you. And I usually...
And you got your little paper cutter here,
like
right?
around 26 millimeters.
Yeah.
I'll dump the sheet in here,
Right.
paper cutter, and at 26 millimeters, I'll make a slice.
Right, okay.
Now, this slice, put that off to the side. So now we got a full sheet, and we're gonna start cutting across. I can see this glass has like a little tiny
I see that
crease
indentation in it.
So I'll
So
work
get rid
around
of that.
So,
And it's best to check that ahead of time.
Yeah,
Because you don't want to install it and then find that, right?
Oh man, yeah, you got to check out each section. So I'm cutting like 1/2-inch sections of this glass.
And so the 1/2 inch will give you enough overlap, right, outside of the window?
Yes, technically, it's going to be, when you set it inside the car, it's going to get,
Oh, yeah.
it's quite a bit. So in there, you're looking at something like, oops, quite a bit of
nice
overhang.
Sure.
You don't want to do it. You don't want to cut exactly to the window.
Right.
The window width. Raise up, put as much glass as you can above the window, and the reason is that when you start putting in shades, it makes it that much easier. Everything stays level, and I'll show you on that.
Why that's important, yeah.
Yes. So what I always use to put in my glue is chopsticks.
What else are chopsticks for?
Go out to dinner, okay?
Have Chinese,
go out to dinner.
if you got a leftover.
Yeah, go out there and
don't throw them away.
yeah, don't throw them away. Have your clean off the chop suey off there in the rice and stuff. I'm out there swiping chopsticks. So I can use contact cement or the Formula 560.
Yeah.
Formula 560.
And it dries clear.
Yeah, it dries clear.
We'll move this out
The
of the way.
contact cement. The reason I use contact cement is because I'm doing so many cars, and it's more economical for me to use it. But the Formula 560.
And the contact cement doesn't fog it in any way,
No,
right?
it's not going to fog it.
Because if you were to put crazy glue or something on there,
I see people put crazy glue in the cars. Oh, it fogs up the glass.
You're gonna fog it and ruin it.
And
So don't use crazy glue.
No crazy glue. Don't
right.
try this at home. So I'll just dip the chopstick in there, and the way I'm going laying it in there is like in a pattern.
Yeah.
Man, it's really hard going like this, but
it just drips in there, like
just drip it. Just go in between your windows.
You really know how to use a chopstick.
Yeah, I'm pretty. Wait till I use two of them. I could do two. So you want to go down the sides, in and out like that. Just you want to really glue a good surface where the glue is going to stick onto. Set it aside, or when you're doing a car, you'll be going in there. I'll do this one. I'll do this car too.
Okay.
So you're reaching in, you're going back and forth, back. Now contact cement, it's stringy. And what I'm saying by stringy is when you lay it in, you're going to see all these little webs.
Right. Well, as you pick it up out of here, you'll see how it stretches, right?
Yeah, you'll put it in
See,
there.
look at that stretch.
See that?
There you go.
Touch the side, spin your chopstick around, just keep it spinning and stuff, and to cut the webbing. And you're just going back and forth around each window in here.
And of course, we got good ventilation in here. We can smell it, so make sure you have good ventilation at home when you're using contact cement.
Oh yeah, man, indeed. Man, you're really a small room, having a good time.
Bet you would.
So yeah, inside a car, the way my rule of thumb is I can lay the glue in here, both sides, set it aside. By the time I hit the second car, after I'm done with the second car, this stuff should be tacky. You do not want to put glass on really wet contact cement. Let it dry.
Right.
It's just, you can come back to it later on.
And that's typically the use of contact cement anyways. If
supposed to
we're
be.
laying a mica countertop or anything like that, you want to let it get a little tacky, right?
Yeah, you don't want to. So just let it dry a little bit. We'll come. So after we press in our glass, it's probably wise to have like tweezers or little pliers to lay it in there. We can lay it down here.
Okay.
Yeah, and to get the to see how it's going to go. So yeah.
Tacky?
This show we're going to be watching glue dry. Ooh. So the reason, and for in here, let me talk about this. For vestibules and for the inside of the cars, like this part, I just sit there with the scissors and this section that I cut off the extra, that's where I come up with that. I could just cut really thin strips.
Okay.
To insert them, I'll show you right here. I'll cut off a strip, and you want to measure in between your handrails. You have your handrails, and so I'll cut a little section off right there.
Very nice.
I'll dab a little bit of glue and just set it aside.
Okay.
You never want to put the glass in there when it's wet.
Right.
With the glue. Just let it get tacky. And for these sections, I always see a lot of models out there for sale, and people don't know how to put the glass inside the vestibules. used hooked tweezers. You know, the curved tweezers, those are great. You can come in through here with the curved tweezer. You can lay it in there and then center it, and I got great glass. So,
Are we
this
ready?
stuff should be kind of tacky.
Okay, let's move this out of the way so we can see it.
So, yeah.
Start at one end, yeah.
Yeah. And then you're going to put your fingers in through the car and just go through and
Yeah. And don't slide it at all, right?
don't slide it. Don't
You'll
slide
have
it.
glue on your window.
You know
It's
what,
showing.
too? Make sure your fingers don't have any glue.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I do that periodically. It's like you're in there pressing in and you're like,
Now you've ruined it.
oh no, you spread contact cement in there. So now we have our
Look at that.
yeah. And
Looks
so when you
good.
look down, you know, the glass is straight.
No
in there.
warped at all.
Yeah.
Not
Only
warped
the
at all.
models work. 'cause
Yeah.
It's been handled.
Very nice.
Yeah, here, let's see that two-tone gray car.
Okay.
I'll dump it in there. Yeah, this is where
Tweezers would have been good.
tweezers, yeah. That's the problem with these passenger cars. They're so thin. I mean, narrow. So we got something. You see right there.
Very nice.
Now tell us a little bit about the tools that you're going to use here and some of these, some of the chemicals actually that we're going to see.
Well, let's start with brushes. I like the flat, I call them chisel brushes,
Okay.
for surfaces such as the side of a tender, flat surface,
Right.
the cab, broad areas, and they come in many different sizes, so you can bring them down for closer work. For things like streaking, you want a good pointed brush that holds a point when it's wet. You use that to streak. I use it on smoke boxes particularly when I want to streak the paint. And you're controlling. Basically, you're drawing paint. Remove it from certain areas. Streaking with the brush both up and down. You'll see in the video later on. And I find a good brush in this particular instance is very desirable. I get them mostly from art stores.
Okay.
And then I have a collection of brushes that look terrible. This is kind of a scrub brush that I use to basically put it on. These are for specific areas where a stiff brush is useful, like say on a tender truck where I have surfaces that are out and in. This can hit the outer area without touching what's inside, and it has become very useful. Also, afraid somebody thinks it's a worthless brush and uses it for something else and it's gone.
So
And-
no one would do that, would they?
Well, around my place, store, I worry about that.
Yeah.
And the paints I'm using, most of my years that I've been weathering, I weathered with Floquil.
Right.
And a lot of the early engines were painted with lacquers, auto lacquers, mainly because not only was it fast drying, but it had a good gloss. But the Floquil weathering over it, the thinners used for Floquil did not disturb the lacquer that was under it. And this weathering technique that I use is a series of layers, and each time I clear coat, forming a barrier between what was done previously and what is being added. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do the washes I do without lifting the older paint up. And since Floquil left, I had to find an alternative, and I went to oil paints.
Which we have here on the table, right?
I have been
Yeah.
experimenting with some artist oils, but I've been using
You want me to say the name?
Yes.
Abtalon. Abtalon. That's it. Does that sound good enough?
Better than my tongue can do. I believe it's made in Spain, and they describe it as a weathering oils, and I
Yeah.
get it from a local hobby shop that's from MIG Products, I believe.
Okay.
And they have a wide range of colors. And I have a chart.
Yeah, we see our chart here.
And I hope to whittle that down to maybe about half. But at the moment, I'm experimenting with different combinations of colors.
Right.
Because dirt and rust come in a lot of different colors.
And they
don't
come
they?
in all, and again, depending again where you are, as far as where you're modeling, what part of the country. Now, the thinners that the art stores have, for the most part, are way too slow drying. Now, I will, for instance, I'll spray a dirty wash over the tender to work it, and I use Scale Coat 1 thinner, because it will dry to the point where I can pick it up. If it wasn't for that, this whole model would be wet. And
so we absolutely have to have a fast drying thinner.
there are some other possibilities I have not tried. Enamel reducers. Does Tesla still make their airbrush
Cleaner.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. And Alptelung has a thinner that I haven't tried, mainly because the shop only had a small bottle, and I'd go through that in 10 seconds. But so it's still an experiment.
It's always evolving, right? As to the things that you could possibly
with
use.
in California specifically, that we've had a big change as far as what paints are available, such as the lacquer paints or solvent-based paints. They're trying to eliminate them, and they're taking us into acrylics. The only thing we still have are the oil-based paints that are produced at the art stores, and and we also have the Model Masters paints, which I have painted with the Model Masters or weathered with the Model Masters paint. The advantages and the key to the process in our weathering is once you paint the engine, we need to be able to apply a wash and remove this wash or work this wash without attacking the paint underneath.
Right.
So we have to find a thinner that will thin this paint, allow us to make our movements without destroying the previous paint the main base paint that's on there. So it's kind of we've been using automotive lacquers for many years, but obviously that's becoming obsolete at the moment, and we're redefining or trying to find new applications for it. With, like, for example, using Tester's lacquer and using these oils. The problem is Tester's lacquer doesn't hold up to the scale coat. So if we could find some of the ones that you had mentioned earlier, but some kind of a reducer that would allow us to thin these paints and work it without attacking that other, to give us a barrier, what they refer to as a barrier, we'll be able to continue and make working with less harsher paints.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think it's time. We've laid all of this out. Let's go ahead and what we're going to tell our audience is that they're going to see across their screen at times a full screen of you going ahead and taking care of this K36. We're going to start off with the tender, I believe it is. We're going to see it here on a TV, and we're going to talk about some of these processes and the techniques and the terms that are used in weathering a model. We see off to the left, that's your paint palette, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, you'll notice that the model is sitting on a pad. It's an artist's sketch pad.
Okay.
It's soft. It gives it a nice base to be working on because you're going to be turning it around. And when it gets dirty, you just rip a piece off and use the next one.
Okay. So what are some of your first steps here?
It looks like I've got white on there right now. And people keep asking me what I use. And I say, well, dab of this and that, because basically you'll see that's what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm mixing the white with the yellow and a little ochre. I'm trying to get kind of what the old days with Floquo mud used to look like. And then mix it and then add a little black and get a kind of a warm gray. A friend of mine, Jim Fennell of Durango Press, wants to describe it as warm weathering. I don't just use white and black. Mm-hmm. I use all kinds of warm colors, which is what Mother Nature uses.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to basically spray the entire tender with this dirty wash. And it's a very thin wash.
Now, has anything happened prior to this spot right here with the tender? Do you put any type of a clear coat or anything?
This engine has been painted. I think I used primed by Auto Lacquer. Mm-hmm. Painted with, I think, Star Brands from PBL.
Okay.
clear coat it with, again, a clear lacquer, decaled, and then re-clear it again, and then off we go.
Welcome to the BrassTrains.com vault. Might look a little scary on the outside, but there is some great stuff inside. You know, what we're going to bring to you in our vault in the next 4 episodes, including this one, is some very special items that I've collected or we've collected as a company through the years. And you're going to find one of the things that makes these items special is not only what they are, but what we call the provenance, the history, the certification that really makes them one of a kind. Now I'm going to show you and tell you more about the first item we're going to release from our vault just a little bit later, but first I want to take you back out to Boyd Reyes, and he's going to explain the Boyd tag. Really, Boyd also, each of his items you could say is vault worthy. They're unique, one of a kind, and he's finally come up with a way to provide that provenance and certification that we're sure you're going to love. So let's go back out to Boyd and talk about that for a little bit first. Boyd, it's good to be behind the table with you again. Since our little intro, Roland's had all the fun.
Yeah, finally I get some time with you.
Yeah, a little one-on-one. That's great. Hey, you guys seriously have done some great segments, but this one's going to be just a little different. Because I think a lot of times when it comes to a model being very collectible, we always emphasize the importance of the provenance.
Yeah.
Or being able to track where it's from. Now that's true with some of the models themselves, but especially what we find is custom work. When it's professional, such as yours, there even can be kind of a name brand attached to it. And we've seen the Boyd Reyes effect with these passenger cars. And I think you're very modest, but you know it's true. But sometimes what we struggle with at the shop, like, because you've done enough cars now where they're coming through, you know, second, sometimes third time. Some of it, you know, is obviously your work. We've come to determine it. But the customer wants to be absolutely positive.
Correct,
So you finally come up with a solution. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, my brother approached me and he says, you have to do something. It's a calling. And Chuck Stead also, too, they both had a meeting, said they're trying to find a solution on how to protect Chuck Stead's investment.
Right.
You know, and I said, fine, let's come out with something. And my brother and Chuck came out with these tags, metal tag systems.
Very nice.
Similar on most of the importers that ship stuff in. They have their little metal tags, and
some of the importers do this.
Yeah.
We love seeing it, even with a model. If it's serial numbered or it has this type of thing. It started with PFM.
Yes.
I've seen this on the Bill Ryan collection, with much of when we bought Don Drew, the PFM collection, the tag. And we have seen absolutely that helps hold that value and increase it, because the end consumer can be confident that they're getting something original with a solid provenance. So how do you go about, where do you put these, though obviously not on the side of the car?
Yeah, on the car, the decision was made to put it towards the vestibule end, or not on an observation car like this. We're putting it on this end of the car, and it's underneath the truck assembly. I don't know if you can see it down here, the little black tag. But yeah, we're putting it,
and we'll show that on the screen
and,
too.
So
you have a limited amount of these. Obviously, it has to go through your hands, and so everything from this point going forward, you're going to use.
We'll have the tag,
Now the question that's going to arise: what if somebody already owns some of your pieces? Is there any way to get it authenticated?
Yes. We're going to have to get in touch with each other, and I'll look at the photos of what they purchased, and some of the stuff was listed on your site, so I know those customers that did pick up that stuff. But yeah, I'll be glad to go there and identify the cars and then document it, and we've got to just work out the price of what we're going to do, but we are going to bring in more tags because there's a lot of cars out there.
Yeah, you've done a lot of work
there's
through the years.
A lot. So yeah, people want to protect their investments and just get that little extra to pull out that extra money.
So in many cases, they could send you the car.
Yes.
Obviously, there'd be shipping. You're going to figure out some charges, which we'll let our customers.
If it's a
know
big
when we
collection,
do
I'll
it.
go over there,
Sure, if it's big enough, you could travel. Otherwise, they could send them to you in bulk, and you could. A lot of them may be complete trains you've done, so you're looking at multiple cars.
Yeah.
And then you might charge a little less than you would on a 1 or 2 car basis, of course.
Yeah, when we're going through the inspections, we're taking pictures and we're documenting them, so that way we have our list of what's come through, what's been going out, and what's been tagged.
Right.
Because the thing is, I just don't want to send out a roll of tags.
It defeat the purpose.
Yeah, and they could be thrown on something else.
Right.
So yeah, that's
and
what
by
we're gonna
you
do.
like photographing them, then even down the road, if we ever needed further authentication,
Yes.
you could go to that, so people couldn't pry it off and throw it on some other car or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know this is a pretty solid system. We've seen it before. It's very difficult to get the etched brass plate off like that. So great, man. Thank you for. We applaud this effort. It's something we've been pushing in our company for years, both with the importers and some of the really people that do fantastic custom work. We'd love to see Jerry Spoelma do something like this. I know Jeff Lemke has a nice certificate, that he includes, but this is really ideal. So, hey, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that way it always stays with it. If something happens to the box or a flood or whatever, at least the model is still preserved with the metal tags. And once the metal tags are on, they're pretty hard to pull off without destroying the paint.
Absolutely.
So
All right, so to our viewers, from here on out, if you buy a great-looking custom passenger car, look for the Boyd tag. All right, we're back to the BrassTrains.com vault. And this week, the item we're going to release is something that we've held in our collection for quite a number of years. It is this Fine Art Models Pennsylvania Railroad M1A 482 locomotive. Now, many realize and are familiar that Fine Art Models really make spectacular items. This one, however, is truly unique. We got this from one of the people that was involved in the production with Gary Coase, and it actually came to us out of Venice, Italy. Yes, this model had to be loaded onto some sort of boat or gondola, taken to the post office and shipped to us. But as far as we know, and from the information we've unearthed, as well as the previous owner's own testimony, this is the only fine art model that was ever produced in a completely unpainted natural state. Now, it's possible somebody else could strip one down, but this model was truly produced as an unpainted. Now, it makes it very interesting for a display. And as you look over the model, and we'll show you some photos, you'll see things open and all the hatches work as they would on the standard version. But really, if anything, one of the things to realize about an unpainted model is the builders have to be even more careful when producing it. The artisans have to realize that every solder mark's going to be visible, things aren't going to be covered up with paint. And so generally, you get a really first-class model. We oftentimes feel the paint job adds to the value, and certainly in some ways it does, but it's just as expensive and often more expensive to get a model produced unpainted. So this is a really special piece. We're going to be listing it at the end of this episode. When it's over, you'll be able to go to BrassTrains.com and maybe add this to your own personal museum. I'm looking forward to letting somebody else enjoy some of these items. We have a large collection, and we always say it kind of rotates. We get new items in, and then we'll release some of these items. Another thing I did want to mention before we leave, you may see a tag here. This item was displayed at the Brass Expo in Chicago, and so some of you may have seen it there. Well, thanks for looking in. We'll see you next week in the vault for another very special item.
I have a question that we receive from time to time from our customers. How do I know how fast my train is running? Miles per hour. And you have a nice little system set up here. And of course, you explained to me earlier the differences, for example, a passenger car, how fast they would run versus a steam engine. It varies quite a bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Guys that run their trains prototypically, what we call scale model railroading, they not only want their equipment to be scale and prototypical, but that they want to run their trains at prototypically correct speeds.
Makes sense.
It does make sense. I mean, if you take a freight train, 45 miles an hour, as an example, would be typical
Right.
around the country, and passenger trains from 65 on up. I remember when I was a kid, the GG1s used to go through my hometown 95 miles an hour.
Amazing.
And I mean, that was the most thrilling sight to for a kid to sit there and watch this thing. And that's what they were speeding.
Right.
That's what they were doing. And so we tried to make our own passenger trains run the same way.
Yeah. Okay, show us what you got.
So here we have a beautiful rendition of the 1941 City of Los Angeles, the 8th train on the UP roster. And it's a beautifully executed model, properly painted, and has the proper power, 3 E2s. The E2s were built by Overland, and the train itself was built by Coach Yard.
Okay.
And we tried to make sure that we run typical speed, so we start out at 12 volts.
Right.
And then we check the speed. Now, how do we check the speed? Well, if you see that little black mark there.
I see it.
And you see a black mark there.
What does that represent?
Guess.
1/10 of a mile.
How did you know? Absolutely true. And I have a little machine here that interpolates all that stuff, see?
Well, here she
so
comes.
when the train comes along, we whack the bingo when it gets to the first point, and we whack it at the second point, bingo.
There we have it. How fast is she running? 68.7 miles an hour.
Right.
Very nice.
So, then if you want to go faster, let's kick it up here to 14 volts.
Okay.
And watch it as it comes back.
Okay. You know, this kind of reminds me as if I was driving on the highway and I have a helicopter flying overhead and they have those
Same
marks,
thing.
right?
It's exactly the same thing that they do. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can be able to identify.
They know exactly how fast you're going.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, so she goes down there and turns around for us.
She goes around the helix. And when she comes back, you'll see that she's going a little bit faster.
That's a beautiful helix, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. Those helixes are a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are.
Yeah. All right, here she comes. We're going to gauge
Here
her
she
up.
comes.
We're going to put our radar on her.
Okay, here she comes.
All right.
Getting close to the first one.
So we should expect an increase.
Bingo. Bingo.
And we did, 76.5.
Now that's prototypical.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Of course, out in the countryside, where there's nothing else around, it'll go 95 miles an hour. I'm speaking of the prototypical train.
Right.
But when you get in to hilly country, if they need a helper or something, the speed goes down. But the UP, the SP, the Pennsy always tried to maintain 95 to 100 on their crack passenger trains. And like the Pennsy always ran through New Jersey between Elizabeth and Philadelphia. 95.
Excellent.
Good.
So a typical customer can set up a 1/10 of a scale mile.
Right.
Get our little
gadget.
AccuTrack, right?
AccuTrack.
AccuTrack,
That's right.
and measure that at 12 volts, and we'll see exactly how fast our train is going.
The trains are going. And I do the same thing with all my freight trains. Make sure they're within reason. You know, I don't want to go too fast or too slow.
Right, right.
Later, we're going to run some of these, and I'll show you how nicely they run at slow speed too.
Okay.
So-
Well, thanks for answering that question for us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Another little tip and trick you showed us.
Anytime.
All right, buddy.
Good morning, this is Jimmy Booth, and we're coming to you from Dan's Legoland and Money Morning Express. Hey Dan, is this stuff glued together? Oops, I guess not.
Well, I must say, like usual, Dan, you really hammed it up in that intro.
I just really appreciate all the support we get.
Yeah. Oh my. You know, I think if we were to re-roll the tape, we would see.
We're just seeing the audience.
Yeah, but you notice it was bright when you looked out. I think our customers are going to see that it was dark. Looking at the audience.
The next thing you're going to say, all that fan mail is actually just like bills and junk mail.
Well,
I got to call it what it is.
Oh, well, we have fun.
That was cool. But hey, listen, in all seriousness, I really like the BrassTrains.com vault.
Yeah.
That was really cool. We have some great stuff. We're really looking forward to releasing.
Yeah, when we came up with that idea, it was like, what are we going to... And then I didn't realize how many, like, really cool things. We saved a lot for the Brass Expo.
Sure.
When we did that museum. And so we've been holding back things both for my personal collection and just in our facility for years. And so it's kind of time to let a few of these things out into the general public.
Really cool. And hey, speaking of the Brass Expo, we're going to have with us here in a few weeks Mr. Forrest Nace.
Looking forward to it.
He's got some updated information on the venue. So we'll get to hear all of that, where it's going to take place this year. We certainly look forward to his visit.
And put the rumors to rest.
Absolutely.
And find out where it's going to be.
Yeah.
So that's all good on a little bit of a sad note and kind of tied in with why we didn't have the last Brass Expo. It was a hurricane we were dealing with, now an even more serious one.
Yeah, Hurricane Michael, right, this last weekend.
Fortunately, it didn't affect us much, but we sure are concerned, and we'll try to help out however we can.
Yeah.
You know, our friends in the Panhandle there.
Sure.
Because
devastation, isn't it?
Very
really
bad. So hopefully the show gives some people a little break from reality of what you're going through, and we'll see you next week. So here's a little preview.
Next week, Scott Inman continues his informative series on installing DCC and sound, this time in a brass diesel locomotive. You'll enjoy the next segment with Kenichi Matsumoto, where you'll get to see what is believed to be the first and oldest brass model train made in Japan. Dan will release the next spectacular item from the BrassTrains.com vault. All that and much more on Monday Morning Express.